بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Topic today, and we continue inshallah, Islamic manners. And Islamic manners, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's khas, it's special to Islam and Muslims, meaning it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the one who taught us how to behave, how to conduct ourselves, what is the moral code that we are supposed to have as people, how are we supposed to carry on ourselves as people in this world that we're living in. So first we started and we begin with al-adab ma'allah, al-adab ma'allah, the adab and the mannerisms that you're supposed to have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as I mentioned, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was taught by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he mentions, "Addabani Rabbi fahuwa ahsanu ta'dibi," that it is my Lord who has taught me mannerisms, and He is the best of all teachers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this was directly part and the inherent quality of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. As you know, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was gifted with the best of all qualities. And with those qualities, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him that ability to be able to master himself. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, that you are the best of all mankind with regard to your akhlaq and the character that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam has told us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who has given us the understanding of how to behave, how to conduct ourselves as believers. And this is something that we have to continuously work on and we have to master. Without mastering it, we would not be able to get that speciality of a Muslim and the akhlaq. As we said as well, akhlaq of a person and the character of a person, the good mannerisms, the Islamic mannerisms of a person is definitely going to be very weighty on the scales of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that akhlaq and the character of a person is what will be very weighty and will take a person into Jannah. So my dear respected brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a very perfect deen. And this is why part of the explanation that I started with is to make us understand that our moral and ethical code will require us to fulfill the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because think about it, logically we cannot say that a person is morally upright who does not follow the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who ignores the teachings of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How can that person be considered a moral upright person? He cannot be morally just. He cannot be morally and ethically, socially upright at all. And it is not considerable. So that person first needs to come onto deen, needs to follow the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Stay away from what those things that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to stay away from. So this is what we spoke about in the beginning in the first class. So, and the second class as well, I mentioned immorality is disregarding the tenets of faith. So a person cannot be considered a upright person having Islamic mannerisms when they are disregarding the tenets of faith, when they do not follow the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inna Allah kana alaykum raqiba. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is observant of every single thing that we do. And kiraman katibin ya'lamuna ma taf'alun. The angel kiram and the angel katibin, both of them are sitting down and writing every single action that a person does. These are two angels that are stationed for that purpose by the right shoulder and the left shoulder, both of them sitting, monitoring what a person does. And that's why it is very important to work on our akhlaq, work on our Islamic mannerisms. And in this session, when we talk about these different topics, we will be discussing three main topics as we go along throughout the month, inshallah. The first topic that we'll be covering is the one that we started with, and this is adab ma'allah, the adab and the respect and the mannerisms and the etiquette that you will have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the sha'air of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those things that is dear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in that topic, we will talk about, for example, the sha'air. One of them is the Quran, the miracle of the Quran. So we will talk about the adab and the manners that we have with the Quran. We'll talk about the manners that we have with the masjid. And this is also from those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made as a very blessed sanctity, which is one of those things that we connect with to be able to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is one of those tools that we utilize. So there's a certain amount of mannerisms and adab and respect that we have for the masjid. We also have respect for the Quran. We also have respect for the dhikrullah and the adab ma'ad du'at wal kibar al ulama. We have also respect for the preachers that preach unto Islam, because their job or what they're doing, they call unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's one of the noble jobs. Even also with that, we have the job of the ulama, who preserves the deen and who establishes madaris and those places of learning and teaching which will continuously propagate and strengthen and continue the preservation of deen. So this is also a certain amount of respect and manners that we have to have with these places. We have to also have respect for salah. So we'll talk about some of the mannerisms with regard to salah, with regard to cleanliness and so on. So this is one category of etiquettes and mannerisms that we will talk about. The second one is al-adab ma'an nafs, the respect that you have, the etiquette that you have, and the mannerisms that you have with your own self. Your own self requires a certain amount of time, a certain amount of training, a certain amount of quality quality assurance, to make sure and to make sure that that person, ourselves, meaning us, I, have the inherent qualities of good and remove the bad qualities. It is very famous. We all, as Muslims, we know, and we start off with La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. So La ilaha illallah is made up of two major parts. That you negating a part that is not beneficial, that is not good, it is not true. That is that you're negating any deity or anything besides the God. And then you're affirming the good quality, you're affirming the reality of God himself. So this is an inherent quality where you have to negate things that are not beneficial, and you have to instill things that are beneficial. So part of the nafs is going through that process to rid ourselves of the evils of within. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us through the du'as, for example, and different adhkar, that we should protect ourselves from our own evil. Every single Friday, for example, whenever someone does a talk, whenever someone starts up some type of lecture, a lot of times they use this khutbah at the beginning of the talk. They will praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they will say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min sharri nafsi. Or they would say, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, wa nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina. They will say, and we seek forgiveness. We seek, protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We seek Allah's protection, We seek Allah's protection min shururi anfusina, from the evil of our own selves. From the evil of our own selves. Min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina, and from the evil of our own actions. So this is from the prophetic teachings as well, that we have to protect ourselves from ourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina aminu, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, aminu. O you who believe, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, aminu. So this is a beautiful verse of the Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, aminu. O you who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, aminu, then firmly believe, meaning come fully into that system of belief. Make sure that you are fully following the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and coming to that stage of equilibrium. And I'll talk about that a little bit. We have different stages of this nafs. And this is why this is the major second topic that I'll be discussing. Things like the adab within ourselves, because when you are at that equilibrium, when you are pure, when your heart is pure, then your kalam, your speech will be pure. The way that you interact with others will be pure. The way that you, for example, you eat will be according to the sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you drink, when you sleep, when you wake up, when you do any actions within yourselves, when you put on your clothing, for example, when you travel, when you do any action, it will reflect the purity of who you are and what you have internally. And when that is pure, then that is reflected outside. So that is why we will be talking about. That's the second major topic that we'll be discussing. And the third one, I'll just say for our benefit, is al-adab ma'al ghayr. The adab and the etiquettes that you have with others. Other than yourself. For example, your spouse. The adab that you will have at the time of marriage. The adab you'll have when you have a khilaf, a difference of opinion between others. The adab that you will have with, for example, a Muslim woman or a woman outside, a ajnabiya, a person who is not related to you. What type of etiquettes that you're supposed to have, for example, as a male to a female to a male. We'll talk about the adab and the etiquettes that you will have at the time of someone passing away, and the janaza. You will have the etiquettes that you will have, for example, when you are sitting with others and you are conversing with others, you are having discussions with others. So that's a whole different topic that we'll be going through, inshallah, for the rest of the month. Time is actually going quickly, inshallah, today. Maybe the barakah of many of you all listening on, inshallah. The adab that we have ma'Allah, we started discussing that, and today I want to go. So the first thing that we started touching on is the adab and the respect, the etiquettes and the mannerisms that we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is where belief system comes. That's where your action and your amal, your good actions come about. And also the way that you talk about Allah and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It needs to be something that has a very high standard and a royal depiction. It has to have a very good way of doing that. Today, inshallah, we'll talk a little bit about the nafs, the adab and the respect and the mannerisms that you have within. And as I mentioned just now, the nafs itself, it has three major stages, as mentioned in the Quran. Ya ayyuhan nafsul mutma'inna irji'i ila rabbika radiyatan mardiyah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about nafsul mutma'inna. So mutma'inna is that nafs that has come to the complete equilibrium, and it is fully subservient to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the teachings of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is the first level of our nafs. So this is within, this is you, this is I, this is us, this is who we are. This is the first level that we have. The second level that we have is al-nafsul lawwama. Nafsul lawwama is that nafs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, that it is always lamenting itself. It is going between the stages. Sometimes it does wrong action, sometimes it does good action, sometimes it does not have a full it's not stable. Sometimes there's always movement. It's not fully in control, and it makes a lot of mistakes. This is nafs al-lawwama. And then the last stage, which is the least of all stages, the one that has complete, it does not have any control over itself. This is called nafsum ammara. وَلَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةً بِالسُّوءِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about that type of nafs. And that type of nafs, it always commands towards evil. It does not command towards goodness. Now, to understand all of this, you need to understand, first of all, who we are in our essence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this body and this reality of our life. And this life that we live in, it is a very temporary life. It's not a life that we're going to live forever. It's not a life that we're here for the full time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌّ وَمَتَاعٌ إِلَى حِينٍ. That the life that you're living in this world, وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ, the time in this world, مُسْتَقَرٌّ وَمَتَاعٌ إِلَى حِينٍ. It is a fixed time and it is a benefit for a short time, for a time frame. It's not forever. It's not a time that you're going to continuously have and benefit from. No, this time that we are here is very short and is very numbered. And our temporariness, my dear respected brothers and sisters and viewers, we should be able to recognize it in these kind of days that we're living in. When we have situations around us where we have such a virus is causing a havoc to the entire world, then how sure and how comfortable are we as people? You know, في بروج مشيدة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about when death has to come, it will meet you in the loftiest of towers. It doesn't matter who you are and where you are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you death whenever it has to come to you. So death is something that is written. So how can we keep running from death? How can we keep, having this notion that, we're protecting from death? A person cannot be silly in his actions, but you cannot protect from death. This is our belief as Muslims. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب. قل إن الموت, the maut that you're running from, the death that you're running from, قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم, it will definitely meet you. ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب, and it will take you back. It will take you back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is something that we cannot run from. Now the body that we have, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gifted us with, this body is more important than the soul. Is that correct? No. The soul is more important than the body. The body is just a loan by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the time that we have been given this body is the time up to barzakh. By the time when we leave this world, then the ruh is taken back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the ruh goes to barzakh. The body, it goes down into the earth. And that's why when we die and when people die, no matter how important you are and whatever standard you are, whatever level of importance that you earned or you have in this world, whatever amount of wealth you have amassed and whatever fame that you have, whenever a person dies, they refer to the body at that time as a body. They do not say Ibrahim is lying here, be quiet, Ibrahim has just died. They do not call names. They do not say Ismail. They do not say Abdullah. Ya Abdullah, the wife of Abdullah. No, now they start referring to that body as a body. They start saying that, the deceased is here. We have bring the deceased. They start changing the terminology, and we have to reflect on these things. We start changing the terminology that is used. No longer you will say, can you move? And you don't call the name anymore. You don't say, can you move Abdullah, the deceased body? You'll say, let's move the deceased from here. The deceased family, you will refer to the deceased wife. This is how the language changes for that person. And this is when the ruh is taken out. So the reality of the body is just an envelope that holds the ruh. It holds the soul. Because from the time that soul is taken out, no longer is the body that much, it has importance, but it is not referred to. It does not have any more life. The body is the same. It is the same exact person that was living in this world. But when the ruh is removed, the body is the same body that was there, but no longer it has that much respect. No longer it owns its own wealth. No longer it owns its own family. No longer it has any right or any merit in itself to the people. So this is important to understand. So the ruh is something that we need to work on, because the body that we have, we've been working on it all the time. We eat and drink every day. We sleep every day. Do you think that's for the benefit of the soul? No. Most of the things that we do on our daily routine is for the benefit of our body, our jism, our jasad. This is what we benefit. The reality of our thing, our human living, our life in this world. Think about it, and this is example, and many of these explanations given by my dear beloved teacher, Sheikh Muhammad Salim Dorat, Hafidahullah, and he gives a beautiful example. He says, think about a very expensive item that you have, a jewelry. That jewelry that you have, it's in a box. And that box is there just to hold that very valuable jewel that you have. Now, from the time the jewel is taken out and placed in the hand or placed in the place that it should be, for example, is given as a gift, then that box has no benefit whatsoever, is tossed aside. The main value is actually in the jewel. When the jewel is placed in the box, then the whole package together is very valuable. You will protect it. From the time it is removed and is separated and you no longer need that box, it's thrown aside and nobody cares about the box. The reality of the jewel is the reality of the essence of the whole combination that you have there. And that's the reality of our lives. Our soul is very important. Our nafs is very important. And the body that we are using, it is an amana, it's a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it has been given for a certain amount of time. But we need to work on our nafs. We need to work on the most important part of our existence, which is our soul, our nafs, and our reality, as opposed to just the body that we continue feeding and nourishing and taking care of. Within that nafs, within that soul, we have two main strengths. Two main strengths that support us, that gives us a reason to do everything that we do. One is called quwwat ghadabiyya, and the other one is called quwwat shahwiyya. So focus inshallah, and we'll go over this in a different time. Put it up in a slide inshallah. Quwwat ghadabiyya is that strength that you have within yourself, that you would always want to protect yourself. The benefit of protection. The benefit sometimes that you will use the ghadabiyya, that protection, that strength of protection, that you will always want to maintain your honor, for example. You will always want to maintain your safety. You will always do things to maintain your protection as yourselves, as your soul, as your inherent nature of protection, your human quality of survival. This is one quality that you'll have. And this is one of the main things. And the second main strength that you have is quwwat shahwiyya, the quwwat and the strength of preservation of benefit. One that you wish, for example, you are hungry, you want to benefit from eating, you see something that you like, you want to take that. You see, for example, wealth that you can amass to have a good, comfortable life, you'll do that for your benefit. So these are the two strengths that keep fighting with us, or not fighting, but they help us to survive. These are realities that we cannot deny. It is not only a bad thing, but it's a good thing when it's in its equilibrium. It's a good thing when it has a complete control. You have control over it. From the time it starts going out of control, then the aql itself, which is the third level, which is affected by these two strengths, your aql and your intelligence becomes either in harmony, or when these two strengths that you have, you're fighting with, when it becomes imbalance, then your aql and your intelligence becomes imbalanced as well. So it's like one of the scales. Your intelligence is the scale, and these two things here are what, when it is balanced, it will keep you on the right track. And when it becomes imbalanced, then a person goes off the track. He goes and he makes a lot of mistakes. He goes into the stage of ammara, the nafs of ammara, the nafs that controls you, always commanding towards evil. Or you'll fall into lawama if you keep fighting and you keep maintaining balance between them. And when your nafs, when yourself, when your soul has come to a complete equilibrium, it has come to what you call udul, when it's come to harmony, then that person has reached the stage of nafsun mutma'inna. So it's very important, inshallah, to understand. And I'm giving you a little bit of science of your akhlaq, your character as a person. Because when you have these understanding of oneself, you'll be able to control yourself from the desires that that rule us sometimes, or the feelings that we have within that makes us no better than the animals sometimes. And many of us we have issues that we have to overcome. This is why the famous saying, it goes, hasibu anfusakum qabla an tuhasibu, that look at yourself. Hasibu anfusakum, that introspect yourselves, qabla an tuhasabu, before you are taken to account. So take yourself into account before you are taken into account. Wazinu a'malakum qabla an tuzanu lakum, and tazinu lakum, or tuzanu. Here he says, wazanu a'malakum qabla an tuzanu, or weigh your own actions before your actions are weighed for you, before the day of judgment, when our actions will be placed and we will have to answer for our actions. Before that stage comes, weigh your own actions, see if they're beneficial, see if they're giving you some type of benefit in the world that we have. And as I come to the conclusion, this is why, my dear respected viewers, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they were all given this title, radiallahu anhum wa radu an, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with them and they are pleased with Allah. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them this honor? Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testifying to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum that they have been given the quality, or given the assurance, that Allah is pleased with them. They've gained the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only that, they are pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is because as-sahaba kulluhum adul, that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, all of them, every single one of them, they were adul. They had been given this great quality of control over their nafs. And because of the control over their nafs, their own selves, then they had come to this quality, or this realization of reality of life, reality of their own nafs, their own being, who they are, and their souls, and the strengths that within themselves. They came to that understanding of who they were. So this is what you call adul, that you come to a stage of harmony between the nafs that you're always fighting with. And when a person does that, then a person is able to follow all of the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala according to how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects us to follow those commands. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions in a hadith, مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُ رَبَّهُ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَذْكُرُ مِثْلُ الْحَيِّ وَالْمَيِّتِ. He says that the person who remembers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remembers his Lord, remembers his Rabb, it is the example of the living. And the person who does not remember his Lord, does not remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the example of the dead person. Imagine that. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is comparing a living person and a dead person, and he is showing that the life and death of a person depends on the dhikr and the remembrance of a person with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So life comes from the connection and the remembrance that you have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is like if you're dead, it is like if you're not even living. It's like your soul is completely dead and has no merit whatsoever in a life that it has been given when it does not remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll end with this inshallah, and we'll continue this topic tomorrow inshallah. This is a Urdu couplet. Mile khak mein ahle shah kaise kaise, makin ho gayi la makan kaise kaise, हुए नामवर बेशान कैसे कैसे, ज़मीन खा गई आसमान कैसे कैसे. The poet, he says, how great men came in existence, and now they have met the earth. They have met their resting places. So great people, prominent people were there, and now they meet their resting places. They've met the death that they're lying in. And he says, Maki ho gayi la makan kese, that the place that they had and all of the fortune that they had, now they have no place and no fortune whatsoever. It's all gone. All of the name and the pomp that you have, la nishan kese, now they have no worth or no reverence whatsoever in the earth. Zamin kagi asma kese. And then he says that the earth has devoured their bodies now. They're no longer there. So if they did not work on their own souls and their own nafs and who they were and who they're supposed to be and that level and that strength of harmony that you're supposed to reach, then they're nothing. They're nothing anymore. They're not worth anything in the sight of man. It's not in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's very important that we try to understand the dynamics of the reality that we live in. And inshallah, tomorrow I'll tell you and I'll explain about the importance of working on the nafs, working on the self. When a person works on the self, and some of the methods of working on the self, to be able to stop this fight that we have, trying to overcome desires that we have, desires that take us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, things that we want to give up on our life, and we keep going back in it. Sins, for example, that a person keeps going back into, that we try controlling ourselves, but every so often we fall back into the same pattern and we turn away from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes for us. So it's very important to continue the fight with yourself. And it is not something that you'll always have control over, but you have to make sure that just like you worry about your life, you mean your dunyawi life, the life of your physical body, to ensure that your body is well nourished, that you have, for example, you're taken care of, that you don't have any type of sicknesses whatsoever. You will treat yourself when you get that sickness. Similarly, you have to have that much effort towards your own soul. And if you do that, inshallah, you will have control over yourself. So part of the Islamic manners that we are supposed to adopt as people is definitely working on our own souls. And when we work on our own souls, we will be able to have excellent, superb mannerisms according to how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam has given the standard of Islamic mannerisms and etiquettes and moral code. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the understanding, inshallah. We'll continue tomorrow on this discussion. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.